So I want you to imagine installing this $1 million state-of-the-art laser security system in an underground vault.
Okay.
You wire up motion detectors, infrared sensors, the whole works, and then you seal the vault. You never, ever let a burglar anywhere near it.
Right. It's perfectly safe.
Exactly. But over time, because that highly calibrated system never actually encounters a real threat, it doesn't stay perfectly secure. It actually gets restless.
It starts looking for problems.
Yes, it starts glitching.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly the alarms are triggering just because, I don't know, a dust mote drifted past a sensor or a breeze came through the air vent.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
And today's deep dive is really about how we have done exactly this, not to our homes, but to the biological and psychological immune systems of an entire generation.
It is, it's a bracing reality to confront. Honestly, it's almost a little uncomfortable. And the text we're looking at today pulls absolutely no punches.
No, it really doesn't.
We're diving into an essay called Sanitized Generation, Gen S, by Lev Nemotin. He's a PhD who runs this project called Uncompressed Thinking.
Which is just a great name, by the way.
It's perfect for his work because
Yeah.
his core argument is just so unvarnished. He argues that our modern, total obsession with engineering perfectly safe, perfectly sanitized, clean childhoods is backfiring catastrophically.
Yeah.
We think we're building stronger, safer humans, but we are actually producing incredibly fragile ones.
And what grabbed me immediately about Nemotin's essay is that, he doesn't just offer some philosophical grumbling about kids these days. It's not just old man yells at cloud.
Right, totally.
He anchors this argument in hard biology. He starts with a literal cellular foundation to show us exactly how living systems learn to survive. And he does this by pointing to a Wall Street Journal article about a young man named Nathan Schatz.
Yeah, the Nathan Schatz story is crucial because it perfectly isolates that variable of sterilization. So when Nathan was 8 years old, he contracted necrotizing fasciitis.
Oh.
Yeah. For anyone unfamiliar, that is flesh-eating bacteria. It's an aggressive, terrifying infection that moves incredibly fast. He was literally days away from dying.
It's basically the ultimate nightmare scenario for a family. And obviously the doctors went to war, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They used heavy surgery and these massive, sustained doses of broad-spectrum antibiotics just to save him. And it worked. I mean, they killed the flesh-eating bacteria. Nathan survived.
He did, but, and this is the key part, that survival came with a profound hidden tax.
Right.
Those life-saving antibiotics didn't just kill the necrotizing fasciitis. They operated like a biological carpet bombing.
Right.
They utterly devastated Nathan's entire microbiome.
The good stuff, too.
All of it. All the complex symbiotic bacteria that his body had been accumulating and organizing since the day he was born. That invisible ecosystem on his skin and in his gut. Completely wiped out.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to look closely at the mechanism of what happened next. Nathan didn't just walk out of the hospital and go back to normal.
No, not at all.
He suffered for years with chronic, severe inflammation and these mysterious skin troubles. It's exactly like the analogy. The vault was empty, and the security system started glitching.
What's fascinating here is that our immune systems are not just static walls. They're learning algorithms.
Right.
The T cells and immune receptors in our bodies, they actually require constant, low-level interaction with foreign bacteria to learn how to calibrate their response.
They need practice.
Exactly. They need to bump into everyday microbes to learn, okay, this is just a harmless speck of pollen, ignore it, versus, oh, this is a dangerous pathogen, sound the alarm.
Wow. So when Nathan's microbiome was nuked, his immune system was suddenly just standing guard in a sterile white room.
Yeah, and so it started hyperreacting to everything. It literally started attacking his own skin.
And the broader implications of this just blew my mind. When Nathan got to college, he actually started researching this himself. He sampled the bacteria from his own classmates' faces to study their skin microbiomes.
And what did he find?
He found that their microbiomes were completely stripped of diversity. Because they had grown up in these heavily sanitized, hyper-hygienic, modern environments, their skin flora was biologically undertrained.
Undertrained is the exact right word.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need to be very clear here because Nemotin is incredibly nuanced about this. He is not attacking medicine.
No, not at all.
He's the first to say that antibiotics are miracles. Clean drinking water, basic hygiene, vaccines, these save millions of lives. He doesn't want us to go back to the 14th century where people died from a scratched knee.
Right. The problem isn't medicine as a tool.
Exactly. The problem arises when sterility becomes a worldview.
Yes. when protection stops being a practical defense against a lethal threat, and it mutates into this daily, overriding philosophy for how to exist in the physical world.
Because a living organism simply does not develop properly in a vacuum. It requires friction. It needs living contact with foreign, sometimes abrasive elements to know how to construct its own boundaries.
If you remove all the dirt, you don't get a healthier organism. You get an allergic one.
You get an autoimmune crisis, yeah.
Which brings us to the most brilliant pivot in Nemotin's essay. Because he takes this biological reality that an immune system must encounter foreign threats to learn proportion, and he maps it directly onto human psychology and social behavior.
Right. If the biological immune system is trained by physical exposure to dirt, what trains our psychological immune system?
Exactly. What trains courage? What trains a kid's ability to just, not panic when something goes wrong?
He answers that by bringing in a second piece of evidence. It's this fascinating story from another Wall Street Journal article written by a former Navy SEAL.
This story is so good.
It really is. So this SEAL is watching his young son play outside, and the boy spots this massive, filthy mud puddle. And you could just see the gears turning in his head. The kid is winding up to launch himself face first into this mess.
And the SEAL admits that his immediate modern parental instinct was to scream, "Stop."
Right.
To grab him, keep his clothes pristine, avoid the mess entirely.
Yeah, it's the instinct we all have now. Eliminate the mess. Eliminate the friction.
But he checks that impulse. He literally bites his tongue and stops himself.
Because he realizes something profound in that split second. A joyful, healthy, confident child should want to jump into a mud puddle.
Right.
That reckless, slightly chaotic desire to throw oneself into the physical world, that is exactly what an appetite for life looks like.
And if you constantly intervene, you are slowly starving that appetite. The SEAL makes this incredibly sharp point about the difference between punishment and discipline.
Oh, this is a great distinction.
Yeah, like when a parent yells at a kid to stop getting muddy, that's usually punishment. It's the parent reacting emotionally because, well, they don't want to do laundry later, or they're annoyed by the inconvenience.
It's reactive.
Right. Discipline, on the other hand, is grounded in reality and consequence. If the child jumps in the mud, their clothes get wet, the mud is cold, they might slip and scrape a knee.
Nature provides the immediate discipline.
Exactly. The child learns the physical properties of the world. What is slippery, what is cold, how gravity works. The parent doesn't have to artificially insert themselves into that equation. The world is the teacher.
I love that.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because I know a lot of people listening might have the same reaction I initially did.
Which is?
Well, it sounds a little extreme. Wait, so is he just advocating for letting kids be totally reckless and wild? Should we let kids play in traffic or wander into the woods alone just to build character?
No, no, no. The essay is very careful to draw a line there. It is not about recklessness or neglect. It's advocating for managed danger.
Managed danger. Okay.
It's about fighting the urge to overmanage. Look, when an adult constantly rushes onto the field to settle every minor playground dispute or constantly hovers to ensure a child never falls off a log,
Yeah.
the adult is occupying the space where the child's judgment is supposed to be growing. You are outsourcing their risk assessment to your own brain.
Oh, wow. You're acting as their psychological immune system so theirs never actually develops.
Precisely. We've heavily padded the room. And to truly understand just how thick that padding has become, Nemotin forces us to look at a baseline.
Right, a baseline of what a normal childhood looked like before we scrubbed all the friction out of it.
Yeah. He takes us back to his own childhood in the 1950s in the Soviet Union.
The descriptions of this 1950s Soviet childhood are wildly vivid. Like, you can practically feel the freezing concrete and smell the harsh chemicals.
He talks about the playground equipment they had,
Yeah.
things that would probably result in a massive lawsuit today.
Oh, without a doubt.
He describes this thing called the giant steps. It was basically a tall, heavy wooden pole with these long ropes attached to the top.
Sounds slightly dangerous already.
Oh, very. Kids would grab the ropes, run in a huge, wide circle to build momentum, and then just launch themselves into the air.
Wow.
They would fly incredibly high, swinging out by centrifugal force, and then land hard on packed dirt.
Just think about the physics involved there. To not get hurt, you had to be spatially aware. You had to know how fast to run, when to jump, how to brace your legs for the impact.
And how to dodge the other kids flying through the air.
Exactly. You had to actively read danger.
It was a literal education in physics and bodily autonomy. And the education didn't stop at the playground. He describes the daily commute to school, which was a half-hour trek through the freezing Soviet winter.
Oh, and the ink pots. They had to carry these little glass ink pots for school that were notoriously leaky.
Right. The ink would spill in their bags, staining their hands, their books, their notebooks. They just had to deal with the permanent mess.
And the route to school wasn't some sterilized, monitored pathway either. You had to walk through concrete block neighborhoods that were fiercely territorial.
Yeah, they were owned by older, local kids who were not exactly friendly.
Right. You had to learn social geography. You learned that you didn't live in some abstract theoretical concept of a community. You lived in a physical space governed by real faces, shifting moods, and a very real pecking order.
Nobody handed them a pamphlet on conflict resolution or, how to navigate a bully. Life itself was the seminar.
And when you did get hurt, because they got hurt constantly, scrapes, cuts, bruises, the medical intervention was brutal.
The primary antiseptic was this burning iodine solution.
Right. He says the adults would swab these cuts with the iodine and it burned like fire. It left these dark brown stains on their skin that would last for days. He says he can still visualize those brown stains. They stung, they looked ugly, but the pain passed.
They stung and they passed.
Yeah.
That phrasing is the key. The body was in a constant dialogue with reality. But we do need to pause here because this is usually where the skepticism kicks in.
Right, because it's dangerously close to that toxic nostalgia crap.
Exactly.
The whole back in my day, we drank out of the garden hose, we didn't wear seatbelts, we rubbed dirt in our wounds, and we turned out just fine. Does Neymotin actually want us to go back to a world of leaky ink pots and burning chemicals? Is he just romanticizing hardship?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he anticipates that exact critique, and he completely rejects it.
Yeah.
He explicitly states that he is not dealing in nostalgia.
Okay, good.
He does not want the biting Soviet winter back. He does not want careless medicine or untreated infections or neglected suffering. As he bluntly puts it, he does not want stupidity dressed up as toughness.
Okay, so if he doesn't want the actual hardship back, what does he value from that era? What did that brutal environment actually provide that we've lost?
It provided proportion. The old world, with all of its obvious defects and harshness, trained a child's sense of proportion.
Proportion. Think about that like lifting weights. If you go to a gym, you have to lift the 5-pound dumbbells before you can lift the 20-pounders.
Right.
If the heaviest thing you've ever lifted in your entire life is a pencil, the first time someone hands you a coffee mug, your muscles are going to scream in agony. It's going to feel like a massive trauma.
Yes, exactly.
By removing all the 5-pound and 10-pound weights of childhood, the scraped knees, the playground arguments, the cold mud, we haven't made kids stronger. We've just guaranteed that the first time they encounter a 20-pound weight in adulthood, it's going to completely crush them.
That is a perfect analogy for Neymotin's point. Through constant physical friction, those kids learned how to distinguish a minor bruise from a life-threatening wound.
Yeah.
They learned the difference between a passing insult from a neighborhood kid and an actual catastrophe. They learned exactly how much physical and emotional pain they could tolerate.
And most importantly, they learned that the burning feeling of embarrassment eventually fades. They learned how to recover.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? If you strip all of those small, manageable frictions away, what are you left with?
You are left with a child who only understands hardship in the abstract. They only know the language of difficulty. Neymotin writes a line that is incredibly piercing. He says, "We have created youth who are highly articulate about difficulty, but profoundly weak in front of it."
Wow. Articulate about difficulty, but weak in front of it. They have the vocabulary of trauma, but none of the resilience to process a bad Tuesday. That hits incredibly hard.
It really does.
So if we look at the reality of Gen S, the sanitized generation, what has filled the void? We took away the giant steps, we took away the territorial neighborhoods, we took away the physical dirt, but nature abhors a vacuum. What replaced that physical friction?
This is where we arrive at the modern paradox, and it is a terrible trade-off. We have engineered a reality where today's youth are physically overprotected, but they are simultaneously, relentlessly, mentally overflooded.
It's the contrast between the old physical street and the new digital street.
Exactly.
Neymotin points out that, yes, the old physical street could be intimidating. You had to watch out for the rough kids and navigate the literal bumps in the road. But the physical street had a massive physiological advantage. It had a shape. It was entirely local. And most importantly, it ended.
The physical boundary is everything. When you walked inside your house and locked the door, the street was gone. The bully was outside. The danger was outside.
Let's talk about the biology of that for a second. Because the strait ended when you locked your door, your nervous system got to downregulate.
Right.
The cortisol levels in your bloodstream could drop, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode could engage. You had a refractory period to recover and consolidate the day's lessons.
Exactly. Now, compare that to the new digital environment we've handed to Gen S. The digital street does not have a physical shape. It is not local. It is global.
And it never, ever ends.
Never. It follows the child into their bedroom. It follows them into the palm of their hand. It beams directly into their nervous system at 11:30 at night while they are lying in bed.
They are living inside endless, invisible neighborhoods where the social judgment has zero boundaries. There is no heavy oak door you can lock to keep the internet out of your head. The threat is omnipresent.
And because the digital street never ends, the child's nervous system is stuck in a chronic state of threat assessment. There is no downregulation. There is no recovery period.
And you cannot build psychological resilience without a recovery period.
You really can't.
Yeah.
We remove the older, manageable, local difficulties that build proportion, and we replace them with chronic, boundaryless nervous exposure.
We traded physical friction, which actually builds strength and spatial awareness, for limitless digital friction, which only builds anxiety and paralysis.
Yeah.
We are completely undertraining them in the physical world and massively overloading them in the mental world.
Precisely. And this raises an important question, which is vital to understanding Nemotin's thesis. He is very empathetic to Gen S. He emphasizes repeatedly that this generation is not bad.
Right. They aren't morally inferior.
No, they're not lazy. They are simply undertrained. We, the adults who built this system, have increasingly adopted the assumption that if an experience is unpleasant, if it involves getting dirty or sitting through boredom or navigating an awkward social friction, it must be inherently harmful.
We've pathologized normal human discomfort. We treat a scraped knee or a bad grade or a disagreement with a friend like a five-alarm fire that requires immediate adult intervention.
Yes, we equate discomfort with trauma. And by feverishly protecting away all the training, all those 5-pound weights, we've made a fundamental error in understanding what human development actually requires.
The result is a generation with flawlessly clean skin, but a much deeper, invisible, systemic irritation.
The vault is so sterile that their psychological immune systems are attacking themselves.
Which brings us back to the core warning of this deep dive. Do not confuse a protected human with a developed human. They are not the same thing. Comfort is not the same thing as readiness. You can pad the walls of the room as thickly as you want, but eventually everyone has to walk outside. The door has to open.
That is the ultimate takeaway. Human beings absolutely need protection, but they also desperately need training.
Yeah.
They need hygiene, but not sterility as an all-encompassing worldview.
Right.
They need profound love and support, but they do not need a padded exile from physical reality.
Right.
The mud puddle's not the enemy. The mud puddle is the classroom.
So, to you, listening to this right now, take a second and hold a mirror up to your own life today. Think about how you react to the friction in your day.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Whether you are prepping for a massive, high-stakes presentation at work, or you're trying to navigate a tricky dynamic in your relationship, or you just get a rude email from a colleague.
Yeah.
How are you viewing that friction?
Right. Do you immediately panic?
Are you treating every awkward conversation, every minor failure, every bit of pushback as a trauma that you need to avoid or complain about? Or can you start looking at those moments as the necessary dirt? The necessary 10-pound weights you need to lift to train your own emotional immune system.
It requires a massive paradigm shift. It requires looking at the friction in your life, not as a mess to be aggressively sanitized, but as a vital opportunity for contact with reality.
Yeah.
It's about building proportion.
Exactly. Build your proportion. But, sitting with all of this leaves me with one final, deeply provocative thought.
What's that?
We've established the mechanics here. We know that our biological and psychological immune systems fundamentally require friction to function properly. They need intruders to practice on. They need the rough edges of the physical neighborhood to learn where the boundaries are.
Right, the 5-pound weights.
So what happens to us if we just keep going down this exact path? What happens to a society that eventually achieves the ultimate technological goal of absolute zero physical and social friction? If we successfully eradicate every single mud puddle, every sharp edge, every moment of physical discomfort, will our untethered, bored immune systems with nothing left in the outside world to fight simply turn inward and completely destroy us? I'll leave you to mull that over.